Okay, let me just preface this by saying that a lot of the finer details, such as documentation here, I have a messy implementation. My computer crashed, and I ended up losing quite a bit of progress, and as you can see, it's rather late, so I don't have much time. By next sprint, hopefully some of this stuff will be fixed, such as the documentation. Anyways, this is the first sprint. Here we have our collision volume AABB. We have all of our functions. These are the override functions that the base class has. We have our requests and computes. That's what I've called them just because it's easier for me to organize it that way. We have our get min max, which we have there. We have the big four. Within, it's fairly simple. The compute data is a little long because we have to, go through all the points and find the min x, min y, max, all those stuff. And then we just have pass-through functions, other.intersect compute, drag and math intersect, yada yada. Fairly straightforward stuff. And collision volume has, of course, been updated to have the collision volume AABB intersect. So the AABB B-sphere, those will have the pass-through functions, the visitor pattern now, so that will all work. Next up is the visualizer, which gave me the most trouble. This is also where we'll see the bad implementation. We have a visualization box now. We have under AABB, default color, so on and so forth. Show AABB. And then the problem came up when we had to use our new commands, because originally I only had visualizer command, and it was the same functionality as it basically would just call render bsphere. So I had to branch that off. Visualizer command is now a base class. It has two derived classes, AABB and bsphere. Both are almost identical, except for the fact that this one calls render AABB, and this one calls render bsphere. So that is how it's going to work. The commands have to be sorted through the command pool, however, so I need two different stacks of recycled the different types of commands. The factory needs different pass-through functions. This is an entire mess. I wasn't really sure how to solve it. This is the implementation I came up with. It's not great, but it works. It gets the job done. It also sadly required me to add in a getType function, which just tells me what kind of derived type this is, which, yes, it's awful. Moving on from that awful implementation, our visualizer gets the scale and the position for where to draw the box at. We're using non-uniform scaling just for this, just to show the box as it should be. We have our show point here, which I haven't implemented or tested yet, but it's here. It should work, hopefully. I'll test it by next week, though. Priv render A, we move around the viz box and we delete it later. Next up, our collidable. We go up here, we have volume type as an enum, and when they set collider model, they can give us one of those volume types, and then we set the appropriate collision volume. And then within drag and math, we have a clamp function, which is very straightforward, and we have all of our intersects. So as you see, this is the visitor pattern here, and then these are all the different tests that we're doing. So if we test this out, we have this stuff, and then as you can see, we have our AABB here. It's only on the tank body, I should note, because we have three separate models. So the tank body is the only thing registering for the AABB, the collision. So that's the only thing that's being checked. The turret itself is not part of it. As for the particle system, as I mentioned, a lot of research has been done. I asked the question about the sprites during class. I'm going to be doing some test implementations by next week, which will probably be simply creating a particle class, the base class, and I'm not going to even worry about an emitter. I'm just going to get the particle to work, to display correctly, and to, well, I might, if time allows, which hopefully will, I'll also be testing having some presets. So like, I'll have a gravity function within the particle so that it can start to be affected by gravity. I'll have, I'll also mess around with, I don't know if I'll go with transparency. That seems like it might be tricky to deal with, but that's for next week. This week has been rough getting used to everything, so I had to go with the bare minimum this week, and that's all.